Solver and goal seek. Now, goal seek is nice, limited, but it's under the data, under what if analysis, goal seek. Now, goal seek will allow you to find out by setting a cell to a particular value, and you have a cell that you can have change it. So for example, here I've got a person that's going to be working say 30 hours. They can work 20 hours at job 1, 10 hours at job 2. I've got these two factors this factor limited. They can't be bigger than 20, and this one is going to be everything that's after that. It is not limited to 40 on the function that I made, and then this is the total number of dollars that are going to be earned from that. So it's just quick and simple. But so let's work over here. Let's say I want to find out how many hours someone would have to make under this limitation. If they want to make $500, how many hours are they going to have to work? Okay, so they work 40 hours, 20 hours here, that hits that minimum, and this is limited to being, well, it's got to be the 20. So then you make a total of $500 that way. So you can set a target cell and have one thing going off of it. I've got another example over here that I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it with Solver. Here's what Solver looks like. It's really pretty. Now, to get that Solver menu, you may not have Solver. So you're going to twice, I think, see something and want to click on it. But it's not. So Solver is an add-in. So let's go to File. And we don't go to add-ins. We go to Options. And now we go to add-ins. Now, you're going to see Solver and want to click it. Don't. You're trying to manage these Excel add-ins. So you're going to go to Go. And so you need the Solver add-in checked. I have Analysis Toolpack also checked. That's what brings up this one right here. I like it. You're not going to need it. But here's the Solver add-in right there. So hit OK. So I've got it. Now if you've done that, now you have it. So this Solver, I'm going to put it over here so we can see what we're working with. So I've got this one left pretty open. So let's say we want to find out how much money an individual can make. Now, so G6 is the amount of money that's earned in the week by changing, so it's a maximum. We're going to make that a maximum by changing how many hours can be worked. This is I6. Okay, subject to some constraints. That this, subject to some constraints. That this number must be less than or equal to 20, and this one must be less than or equal to 40. I could do this by having, say, cell I9 less than or equal to H9, for example. Okay, but those are those constraints. And then if I hit solve, make that there. It doesn't like it if I'm working outside of the range already. So let's put in, say, 10 and 10, and then we'll sum these two. So that way we can find how many hours we need to work. So let's try this again. Solver, set this to a maximum by changing cell, by changing cells, these two. These are the cells that I'm allowing to change, right? Solve. Okay. So it says work 60 hours, 20 hours here, 40 hours here. That's the way you make the most money. Solver could also be used here to say set this amount of money to a value of, we used 500 before, we use that again by changing cells I9 and I10. Okay. And see what it comes up with. Okay. So you see it didn't maximize it, right? It didn't try and make you off as best as possible. It just found one way. Now there's millions of combinations that could work to get $500 between these numbers of hours worked. If you're trying to minimize the total number of hours worked, this cell, you want to set that to a minimum then by changing cells, these two, and forcing those two to be less than 20, less than 40, which is referenced there, and add one more factor, that this cell has got to be at least 500. And now we can work on that. Solve. And it'll tell me the best way of doing this. So it's essentially given me this rounded number here that's going to make it so that I work 20 hours both jobs. Now, here's a much more interesting question. I've got the best 9 teams in the Premier League for the 2015-2016 season. Points is number of points that they earned. 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie. Goal differential is their goal differential. This is for the whole season. What I'd like to do is use this information that I have here from games between just these two, just the teams in this area. So they'll play each of these other 8 teams twice, so that's 16 games, and then they'll play the bottom 11 teams twice each, that's 22 games. So of the 38 games, I'm curious about how they're playing in the games against the better competition. So I've got that all gathered. So Arsenal beat Leicester by an average of 2 goals per game, and when they matched up, Leicester beat Tottenham Hotspur by an average of 0.5. Maybe they won one by 1 goal and tied the other. Here I've got the expected. This is expected is using these ratings, so that if I change a rating so that if I consider Arsenal to be 1 goal better than everybody else, then I'm expecting Arsenal to put up a 1 goal margin on Leicester City. If I give them all 0, or starting them off at 0 saying I know nothing, then the margin minus expected is going to be my error. Now, so if you look and say, well, I want to minimize these errors, I want to have my ranking be as good as possible, maybe just make Arsenal 2 goals better than Leicester City, then I got no error. Well, I want Leicester to be half a goal better than Tottenham Hotspur. If I leave Leicester at 0, then I need Tottenham Hotspur to be at minus 0.5. And I could keep working that, but you're going to find out that Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspur had end up with a 0, that there was no difference between those 2 teams when they played, and I'm going to end up with 2.5. So there's no way for me to match this. So I'm going to try and minimize the errors that are created by doing this, and then that'll just give me the best possible ranking, or the best fit of this data. So I'm going to go to Solver. I'm going to push it to the side so you can see it better again. I want to set the squared errors, which I put right here, to be a minimum by changing the ratings on the teams, subject to a few constraints. Let's delete all of these. Okay, so to make the ratings so that they are in normal numbers, I'm going to make the ratings, the sum of the ratings, sum of the ratings equal to 0. And to make the ratings fair, I'm going to make the sum of the errors equal to 0. And I hit OK. So I'm going to minimize the squared errors by changing the ratings such that these things are going to be true. Okay. And it comes up with this system. So it gives Arsenal when they played against these teams, to have played 11 hundredths of a goal worse than their opponents per game, and champions Leicester played these teams at 17 hundredths of a goal better than these teams did. Now West Ham played these teams really well. In fact, they averaged 0.39 goals better against these teams than these similar teams did. So by using Solver, I can create a rating that best fits all this data between all the games that these teams played. And there's still some error. In fact, there's errors every time. You can see the errors going through, but it's trying to minimize those so that I can give a good system and say, well, now if Arsenal and Leicester, let's say Arsenal and Liverpool play each other the first game of the season, maybe I don't want to count all the games against the weaker competition, just the games against better competition. I would estimate that Liverpool would beat Arsenal in that first game of the season by about 0.44 of a goal, 0.33 minus negative 11, so the difference there is about 0.44. And in fact, Liverpool won that first game by a goal, which is definitely inside of where I would have expected.